will start with other classes of antibiotics. Antibiotics which act on the cell membrane and antibiotics which act by inhibiting nucleic acid synthesis. Okay, so these two group of antibiotics are very small, so we will quickly cover these antibiotics today, and then we will look at some other aspects of antibiotics. Okay, so when we talk about antibiotics which act on cell membrane, most of the antibiotics that belong to this group are polypeptide antibiotics. Okay, so one thing that you have to remember, whenever in a question it is asked that some antibiotic is having peptide nature, okay, then immediately you should think that it should be acting on cell membrane. Okay, but there were few exceptions. I had told you when we were studying antibiotics which act on cell wall and antibiotics which inhibit cells protein synthesis machinery. There also, for example, vancomycin was a glycopeptide antibiotic. Okay, so we have to be careful, but still, whenever we talk about antibiotics which act on cell membrane, they are mostly peptide antibiotics. Okay, so we will look at what are the different peptide antibiotics which act on cell membrane. Okay, these antibiotics which act on cell membrane, they are divided into mainly two types. One are cyclic decapeptides and the other are polymyxins. Okay, so we will start with cyclic decapeptides. Now look at this cyclic decapeptides. Cyclic means they will have a cyclic structure, okay, ring-like structure, and they are deca. Deca means 10. Okay, so there will be 10 amino acids which will be forming this cyclic structure. Okay, so cyclic decapeptides contain 10 amino acid residues, including some D amino acids. Okay, so when we were studying cell wall synthesis, you had seen that there were certain D amino acids, D-alanine. Okay, so these D amino acids are very rare in the cells because D amino acids are not biologically active. Okay, so in decapeptides, cyclic decapeptides, which are antibiotics inhibiting cell membrane, many of the amino acids are the D amino acids. Okay, so in cyclic decapeptides, 10 amino acids will be there which will form the ring, and many of them will be D amino acids. Now they contain one or two free amino groups. They are more active in gram positive than gram negative bacteria. Okay, this is specifically about cyclic decapeptides. Okay, so they are more active in gram positive than gram negative bacteria. They act by promoting leakage of cytoplasmic membrane. How will they act? Because they are acting on membrane, they will affect the function of the membrane. Okay, and the function of the membrane is to transport molecules across the cell. Okay, from outside to inside, from inside to outside. Oh, if something acts on the membrane, it will definitely affect the transport of molecules across the membrane, and this most of the time results in entry of certain ions which are not normally excluded by the cell. Okay, which are not required by the cell, and cells do not take those ions because they are toxic for the cells. Okay, so when these type of peptide antibiotics act, they will cause intake of certain ions which are normally excluded by the cell, and those ions may prove to be toxic for the cell. Okay, it also sometimes causes leakage of certain ions which are essential for the cell. Okay, certain ions which are required by the cell, it has to be kept inside the cell, they gets leaked out. Okay, so in that way it will affect the membrane transport, and that is how these antibiotics will prove to be toxic. Okay, examples of cyclic decapeptides are valinomycin, tyrosidins, and gramicidins. Okay, of these valinomycin and gramicidin you have to remember. Okay, valinomycin and gramicidin are cyclic decapeptides. Okay, This is the structure of valinomycin. Okay, valinomycin is a carrier of potassium. Okay, so this is the structure you can see here. There are 4 amino acids which are repeated thrice. So 12 in total, 12 amino acids are there, and then you can see here that there are certain D amino acids which are involved. Okay, and this valinomycin is a carrier of potassium, and it causes valinomycin when it is used, it inserts into the membrane and it carries potassium across the membrane. Okay, and it causes an imbalance of potassium across the cell, and the cell will die. Okay, the next antibiotic is tyrosidin. It's a mixture of cyclic decapeptide produced by bacteria Bacillus brevis. Okay, and it is composed of 4 different amino acid sequences, tyrosidin A to D. Okay, so tyrosidin is not single amino acid, single decapeptide, but is a mixture of 4 different sequences of decapeptides. And okay, we have it as tyrosidin A, tyrosidin B, tyrosidin C, and tyrosidin D. Okay, and these are all produced by Bacillus brevis, and they also are acting on the membrane and causes imbalance in the membrane transport and ultimately resulting in death of the cell. Okay, now one thing that we have to remember here, that tyrosidin is synthesis of tyrosidin is achieved through use of non-ribosomal protein synthesis. Okay, so this is a peptide. Okay, normally in a cell, the peptides are synthesized using ribosomes. Okay, but this tyrosidin is produced by non-ribosomal protein synthesis. Okay, so during synthesis of this peptide tyrosidin, ribosomes are not involved. Okay, so there is one mechanism in the cells which is known as non-ribosomal protein synthesis. Okay, in which the amino acids are added by some other mechanism. Okay, and ribosomes are not involved. Okay, so this tyrosidin is also synthesized by non-ribosomal protein synthesis. And the last amino acid in cyclic decapeptide is the gramicidin. Gramicidin is also produced by Bacillus brevis, and this is also a mixture of 6 different compounds. Okay, and the most important of these mixture is the gramicidin D. Okay, it's a linear pentadecapeptide which is consist of 15 amino acids. Because it's a pentadecapeptide, it means 15 amino acids are there. Okay, and gramicidin is used in clinically used. Okay, gramicidin is clinically used for topical application. For example, when we get cuts in our skin, okay, we can use this. Gramicidin is present in the antiseptic creams that we use. Okay, so gramicidin is clinically used. Okay, and the rest of the antibiotics, they are used in research purposes for any other purposes, but not clinically. Okay, so these 3 examples, valinomycin, which is a carrier of potassium, specifically potassium. Then we have tyrosidin. Then we have gramicidin. Okay, these 3 are decapeptides, pentadecapeptides, which are used. The next class of antibiotics which act on cell membrane are the polymyxins. Okay, polymyxins, they have smaller polypeptide chain, okay, as compared to the decapeptides. Okay, then another thing is that this polypeptide ring is attached to a branched 8 to 9 fatty acid residue. Okay, so here in this figure we can say this is a cyclic polypeptide chain, okay, which is attached to this fatty acid residue. Okay, so here peptide amino acids ring is there. Okay, but this amino acid ring is attached to a fatty acid residue. Okay, and these polymyxins, they are also very effective against gram-negative bacteria. Okay, cyclic decapeptides, they were more effective against gram-positive than gram-negative, and these polymyxins, they are more effective against gram-negative compared to gram-positive. They also causes changes in the membrane permeability characteristics and causes the solutes to leak out of the cell, and that is how the bacteria or the target organism will be killed. Okay, so this was all about antibiotics which act on cell membrane. Okay, so just to do a quick revision, there were two group of antibiotics which act on cell membrane. The first group was cyclic decapeptides and the second group was polymyxin. Cyclic decapeptides are more effective in gram-positive bacteria than gram-negative, while polymyxins, they are more effective in gram-negative bacteria compared to gram-positive. Cyclic decapeptides, there were three examples. Okay, the first was valinomycin, which is a carrier of potassium. Okay, it's a potassium carrier that you have to remember. Okay, it is very specific. It's a potassium carrier. Okay, so valinomycin, it is potassium carrier, and when we use this valinomycin, it will get inserted into the membrane, and it will causes imbalance of potassium ions across the membrane. Okay, and potassium is very essential for maintaining the cell's osmotic balance. Okay, and once that is disturbed, the cell will be killed. Okay, then we had the second cyclic decapeptide, which was tyrosidin. Okay, then the third was gramicidin. Okay, in gramicidin, we have to remember that gramicidin D is the most important. Okay, both gramicidin and tyrosidins are produced by Bacillus brevis. Okay, all these antibiotics which act on cell membrane, they affect the functioning of the cell membrane, which is to carry or transport ions and molecules across the membrane. When these antibiotics act, they causes solute imbalance. Okay, solute imbalance across the cell, and the solutes, when they leak out of the cells will die. Okay, so this was about cyclic decapeptide. The next class was polymyxins. In the polymyxins, we had seen that polymyxins, they consist of a polypeptide ring which is attached to fatty acid residues. Okay, and they also act by affecting the membrane permeability. Okay, so this is about antibiotics which act on cell membrane. Now we will look at antibiotics which act on nucleic acid synthesis. At this point, if you have any doubt, you please ask me. Otherwise, I will move ahead. Okay, so students, if you have any doubts, if you want any clarification, please ask me. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, then we will move to next class of antibiotics. Antibiotics that act on nucleic acid synthesis. Okay, now only a few antibiotics that act by inhibiting DNA synthesis are clinically useful, because most of these antibiotics will not distinguish between nucleic acid biosynthesis of microorganisms and that of host. Okay, so that is the main problem whenever we are trying to use any antibiotic which acts on nucleic acid synthesis, because nucleic acid is same whether it is of bacteria or is of the host organism. Okay, so if a antibiotic inhibits the nucleic acid synthesis, it will not be able to distinguish whether the nucleic acid is of the microorganism or is that of the host itself. Okay, that is why most of the antibiotics that are included in this particular group, they are clinically not used. They are used only in research purpose, or in very rare conditions they are used. Okay, because of the side effects, because these type of antibiotics will not be able to distinguish between the nucleic acid of the microorganism and the nucleic acid of the host. Okay, that is one thing that we have to keep in mind. Okay, so all these antibiotics that I will be telling you, they are not clinically used in humans for treating or controlling growth of microorganisms, but they are used in research purposes Okay, or they are very rarely, in very rare instances, they are used for clinical application. Okay, most of them are used only for research purpose. Okay, so we will look at these classes of antibiotics. These are mainly divided into two types: antibiotics which interfere with synthesis of purines and pyrimidines. Okay, and the second class is inhibitors of polymerization. Okay, so the first class are those antibiotics which inhibit the synthesis of purines and pyrimidines. Okay, and the second class is those antibiotics which inhibit the polymerization of these purine and pyrimidine. Okay, so we will start with inhibitors of nucleotide precursor biosynthesis, that is inhibitors of purines and pyrimidine synthesis. Okay, so the first example is azathioprine and 6-diazo 5-oxo L-norleucin, which is also known as DON, short form. 6-diazo 5-oxo L-norleucin. Okay, this azathioprine and 6-diazo 5-oxo L-norleucin, they are produced by Streptomyces, okay, which belong to the actinomycetes group. They are structural analog of glutamine. Okay, so they are structural analogs of glutamine, and they block the de novo synthesis of purine nucleotides by inhibiting incorporation of glycine and formate into the cellular nucleic acid. Okay, so they will mainly inhibit the synthesis of purine. Okay, so this purine synthesis involves incorporation of glycine and formate. Okay, and these two chemicals, azathioprine and DON, they are structural analogs of glutamine, and they interfere with the synthesis of purine nucleotides. Okay, here in the structure also you can see this is the structure of azathioprine, this is the structure of glutamine, and this is the structure of DON. Okay, so you can see from the structure also that they are very much similar. Okay, and where glutamine has to get incorporated in the nucleotide purine synthesis, instead of glutamine, azathioprine and DON will get incorporated, and those enzymes will get inhibited. Okay, so this is the group of enzymes which are inhibited by these two antibiotics, azathioprine and DON. Okay, so you can see that they are inhibiting enzymes which are involved in either purine or pyrimidine synthesis. Okay, so purines and pyrimidines will not be synthesized, and therefore the DNA synthesis will be inhibited. Okay, the next group of antibiotics that inhibit DNA synthesis are those which are inhibitors of nucleotide polymerization. Okay, so they do not affect synthesis of nucleotides, but they affect polymerization of nucleotides. And examples are actinomycin D. Okay, this is an important example. You should remember this, actinomycin D. Okay, actinomycin D, as I told you that it's mainly used for research purpose, and because it is highly toxic and cannot be used for therapeutic purposes. Actinomycin D suppresses DNA-dependent RNA synthesis. Okay, it means transcription. Okay, DNA-dependent RNA synthesis at very low concentrations, and at higher concentration it inhibits DNA replication. Okay, so it inhibits transcription at very low concentration, and it inhibits DNA replication at higher concentration. Okay, this is the structure of actinomycin D, which have been shown here. Okay, this actinomycin D, it inserts into the minor groove of DNA. Okay, and forms bonds, 7 bonds with adjacent part of the DNA molecule. Okay, and mainly it interacts with the guanine residues. Okay, in the minor groove, and what will happen that it will not allow the DNA polymerization or nucleotide polymerization to occur. Okay, so this is how actinomycin D works. Okay, this actinomycin D you have to remember. Okay, because this is a very important example of antibiotic which inhibits DNA polymerization. Okay, then we have other chemicals like acridins, phenanthridins. These are chemicals which inhibit the DNA synthesis, or they prevent, they causes mutation, and this mutation can lead to inhibition of DNA synthesis or of transcription. Okay, for example, we have acridins which include proflavin and mecaprin. Proflavin is very toxic and is used for and is not used in clinical use. Acridin is used as an antimalarial drug. Okay, it was earlier used, nowadays not, it is not used. Okay, phenanthridins, when we talk about, the example is ethidium bromide, and we know that ethidium bromide has a planar structure and it intercalates between the nitrogenous bases. And ethidium bromide is a mutagen and is used in laboratory for creating mutations. Okay, ETBR was also initially used for controlling trypanosoma infections. Okay, but because of its toxicity, nowadays it is not used. Okay, other example of antibiotics which act on cell DNA synthesis is mitomycin and porphyromycin. Okay, mitomycin and porphyromycin both are produced by Streptomyces and are antimitotic agents. Okay, they are all antimitotic agents. Mitomycin and porphyromycin. Mitomycin, how it acts? Mitomycin actually cross-links and holds the two strands of DNA together during heating and permits renaturation on rapid cooling. Okay, so what mitomycin does, that it holds the two strands of DNA together. Okay, so even if you heat it, the two strands will not get separated. Okay, and when the DNA is cooled, it will cause fast renaturation. Okay, fast renaturation of DNA, and that is how it will affect the replication. Okay, because during replication, these two strands should get separated. Even during transcription, these two strands should get separated. Okay, but mitomycin, what it does, it goes there and it binds the two strands together. Okay, and when it binds the two strands together, it will not allow them to separate. Okay, that is why both replication and transcription will be affected when we treat DNA with mitomycin. Okay, then we have another antibiotic, which is rifamycin. Rifamycin, again, it is very important group of antibiotic. Rifamycin, it inhibits the function of bacterial RNA polymerase. Okay, it affects the function of bacterial RNA polymerase without affecting mammalian RNA polymerase. Okay, so this is very specific. Okay, if you give rifamycin to a person who is infected with bacterial pathogen, it will specifically inhibit the bacterial RNA polymerase without affecting mammalian RNA polymerase. Okay, so rifamycin, it is produced by Streptomyces mediterranei, and it is used in treatment against Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, but it is less effective against gram-negative bacteria. Rifamycin is a semi-synthetic member of rifampicin. Okay, rifampicin is an antibiotic which belongs to rifamycin group. Okay, it's a semi-synthetic penicillin, and rifampicin is widely used for treatment in humans. Okay, and it can also inhibit certain viruses like vaccinia, cowpox, adenovirus, and trachovirus. Okay, so rifampicin, I'm telling that this particular group of antibiotics is very important. Why rifamycin is important? Because it inhibits bacterial RNA polymerase. Okay, so it's a different type of antibiotic which inhibits bacterial RNA polymerase specifically without affecting the action of mammalian RNA polymerase. Okay, and it is used in treatment of Mycobacterium tuberculosis. That is why this particular group of antibiotic is very important, and rifampicin is an example of drug belonging to rifamycin group. Lastly, we had quinolones. We have quinolones. Quinolones I have already discussed before also, that quinolones are antibiotics which affect the DNA gyrase activity, and quinolones example are ciprofloxacin, norfloxacin, and ofloxacin, which is currently used. Okay, this we had already discussed. Okay, So metabolic antagonist also we had already discussed about the sulfa drugs and the other metabolic antagonist. Okay, so this I will not discuss today because we had already discussed it. Okay, so with this the antibacterial antibiotics, okay, antibiotics which on and act on bacteria. Okay, as I told you in the definition that antibiotics are chemicals which are produced by one bacteria and are effective against other group of bacteria. Okay, so antibiotics which act on bacteria by different modes, that is over. Okay, in the next lecture we will look at antibiotics, or we can say chemicals which are acting on different type of fungal pathogens. Okay, so with this, today's lecture is over. I will post this. I think I have already posted this PPT to you in the group, in the WhatsApp group. Okay, so you can refer that. And in the next lecture, we will start with antifungal compounds. Okay, if you have any doubts, students, you please ask me. Okay, I will just download your attendance. Okay, if you don't have any doubt, then I will stop here.